In a future where emotions are suppressed, a rebellious technician and a stoic, implant-free pilot discover a signal from a lost starship, a beacon of true human feeling. Their forbidden connection sparks a revolution, challenging a technologically advanced, emotionally sterile society. This is a story of love, courage, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Prepare to be swept away by a tale of daring adventure, forbidden passion, and the fight for freedom in a world where emotions are the ultimate weapon. Chapter 1. The Glitch in Harmony. The hum was almost imperceptible, a subtle vibration against the polished chrome floor of the Harmony Corporation's central server room. Alara knelt, her fingers tracing the cool metal of a data conduit, her brow furrowed in concentration. Officially, she was running diagnostics, checking for the infinitesimal power fluctuations that could disrupt the City of Unity's meticulously calibrated equilibrium. Unofficially, she was hunting for ghosts. Not literal ghosts, of course. Ghosts were an emotional construct, a relic of the pre-Harmony era, when humanity wallowed in the chaos of uncontrolled feelings. Now, in 2347, such things were neatly managed, thanks to the corporation's neural implants. Every citizen, from birth, received the Harmonizer, a tiny device nestled at the base of the skull, ensuring a life of serene productivity, free from the disruptive influence of joy, sorrow, anger, or love. Except Alara felt them. Not fully, not like the forbidden historical vids described, but in fleeting, fragmented bursts. A pinprick of sadness when a data stream ended abruptly. A flicker of something akin to excitement when a complex algorithm resolved itself. These were the ghosts. She chased anomalies in the system, glitches in her own carefully suppressed reality. Technician 743 Alara. A crisp, modulated voice echoed through the server room. Supervisor Rylan. Report. Alara straightened, smoothing the wrinkles from her gray uniform. Minor power fluctuation, Supervisor.
Conduit 47B.
It's within acceptable parameters, but I'm rerouting to a backup for stability. Efficiency is paramount, Technician. Rylan replied, his face a mask of placid neutrality on the wall-mounted comm screen. Maintain optimal function. Of course, Supervisor. Alara kept her voice equally neutral, masking the tiny surge of what? Annoyance? Frustration? The feeling vanished before she could identify it, leaving behind the familiar, dull ache of emptiness. Rylan's image flickered and disappeared. Alara returned to her work, but her mind was elsewhere. Tonight was the anniversary. 3 years since the incident. The night her parents disappeared. Officially, they had been reintegrated for exhibiting signs of emotional instability. Unofficially, Alara suspected something far more sinister. It was during her unauthorized investigations into their disappearance that she had first encountered the signal. A faint, rhythmic pulse, buried deep within the corporation's archived data streams. It resonated with something other. Something that felt dangerously close to those forbidden emotions. She connected her personal datapad, a heavily modified device, capable of bypassing the corporation's firewalls, to the conduit. The official diagnostic software hummed, displaying neat rows of green checkmarks. But beneath that, Alara's custom program was working, sifting through terabytes of data, searching for that elusive signal. There. A flicker. A brief, almost imperceptible spike in the energy readings. It was stronger tonight, closer. Alara's pulse quickened, a sensation she normally suppressed, but tonight, she allowed herself to feel it. The thrill, the fear, the hope. Suddenly, a sharp alarm blared through the server room. Red lights flashed. Rylan's voice, sharper now, crackled from the comms. Technician 743 Alara. Report immediately. Unauthorized access detected. Alara's heart hammered. She ripped the datapad from the conduit, wiping its memory with a pre-programmed command. She had been careless. Too focused on the signal. Too desperate for answers. Technician. Rylan's voice was laced with something that, in another time, might have been called anger. Alara took a deep breath, forcing herself to regain the placid neutrality expected of her. Supervisor, she said, her voice steady. I believe the power fluctuation triggered a false alarm. I'm resetting the system now. A tense silence followed. Then, Ryland's voice, still tight, but calmer. Very well, technician. But be warned. Any further anomalies will result in reevaluation. Reevaluation. The euphemism for having your harmonizer adjusted, your memory scrutinized, your very being recalibrated to ensure perfect conformity. Alara shuddered. She had to escape.
Now.
She slipped out of the server room, blending into the flow of technicians and maintenance drones. The City of Unity was a marvel of engineering, a gleaming testament to the corporation's power. But tonight, it felt like a cage. As she navigated the sterile corridors, a plan began to form. A desperate, reckless plan. It involved the outer zones, the lawless territories beyond the city's walls. And it involved a pilot, a man named Jax, who, according to the whispers, had refused the harmonizer. A man who might hold the key to unlocking the secrets of the signal and the secrets of Alara's own fractured heart. The question was, how will she find him? It was a question that needed to be answered quickly. Chapter 2. Outcast's Embrace. The outer zones were a stark contrast to Unity's gleaming sterility. Crumbling buildings, scarred by weather and neglect, huddled together like frightened children. The air, thick with the scent of dust and decay, felt strangely alive. Alara coughed, pulling her thin scarf higher over her nose. It wasn't just the pollution, it was the sheer unfiltered reality of it all. She had managed to slip out of Unity through a disused maintenance tunnel, a route whispered about in the darkest corners of the digital underground. Now, she was on her own, a fugitive in a world she barely understood. Her destination was the Rusty Cog, a bar, or rather, a collection of salvaged metal sheets and flickering neon signs that served as a hub for the outer zone's less reputable citizens. It was here, according to her fragmented intel, that Jax often traded for supplies. The interior was dimly lit, smoky, and filled with a cacophony of sounds, clanging metal, guttural voices, and a strange, rhythmic music that pulsed with a raw energy Alara found both unsettling and intriguing. She felt a prickle of something that might have been fear, but beneath it, a flicker of excitement. This was real. This was unfiltered. She approached the bar, a makeshift counter constructed from salvaged spaceship plating. The bartender, a hulking figure with a cybernetic arm and a face etched with countless scars, eyed her with suspicion. Looking for something, Harmony girl? He grunted, his voice a gravelly rasp. Alara swallowed, trying to project an air of confidence she didn't feel. I'm looking for a pilot.
Jax.
The bartender's single organic eye narrowed. Jax, huh? What's a pretty little thing like you want with him? It's a private matter, Alara said, hoping she sounded convincing. She pulled out a small pouch, containing the last of her Unity credits, useless here, but perhaps a gesture of good faith. The bartender chuckled, a sound like grinding metal. Credits won't buy you much in the outer zones, girl. But he leaned closer, his breath smelling of cheap synth ale. Jax is a man of particular tastes. He appreciates information. Information about Unity. Alara hesitated. She had information, of course. The signal. The corporation's secrets. But revealing it could be dangerous. Yet, she had no choice. I have information, she said, her voice barely a whisper. About a signal. A lost starship. The bartender's eye widened slightly. He straightened up, his demeanor shifting from dismissive to cautiously interested. A lost starship, you say? Interesting. Very interesting. Wait here. He disappeared into a back room, leaving Alara alone at the bar. She felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. She was surrounded by strangers, outcasts, people who had rejected the very foundations of her world. Yet, she also felt a strange sense of belonging. Here, in this chaotic, unfiltered environment, she wasn't a technician, a number, a cog in the machine. She was Alara. After what felt like an eternity, the bartender returned, followed by a tall, lean figure. Jax. He was even more striking than the rumors had suggested. His face, unmarred by the harmonizer's telltale implant scar, was a study in controlled intensity. His eyes, a piercing shade of gray, seemed to see right through her. He wore a worn leather jacket, and a blaster was strapped to his hip. He moved with a quiet grace, a predator in his natural habitat. "This is her," the bartender said, gesturing towards Alara. "Says she has information about a lost starship." Jax's gaze fixed on Alara, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. It wasn't just fear, it was something else. Something unfamiliar. "A connection?" "Speak," Jax said, his voice low and resonant. Alara took a deep breath and began to tell her story. She spoke of the signal, of her parents' disappearance, of her growing suspicion of the corporation. She spoke of her desperate need to understand the nature of the emotions the signal contained. Jax listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he remained silent for a long moment, studying her with those intense gray eyes. "You're risking a lot coming here," he finally said. "The corporation doesn't take kindly to deserters." "I know," Alara said, meeting his gaze. "But I have nowhere else to go. And I believe you can help me." Jax tilted his head slightly, a flicker of something that might have been amusement in his eyes. "And why would I do that?" "Because," Alara said, her voice gaining strength, "I believe you understand what it's like to feel. To be human." A muscle twitched in Jax's jaw. He looked away, his gaze fixed on the swirling dust motes dancing in the dim light. "Feelings are a weakness," he said, his voice flat. "They're a liability." "Maybe," Alara said, stepping closer. "But they're also what makes us alive." She reached out, her fingers brushing against his hand. It was a small gesture, almost accidental, but the effect was electric. A jolt of pure sensation surged through her, a wave of warmth, connection, longing. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. Jax recoiled as if burned. He stared at her, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and something else. Something that mirrored her own desperate hunger for connection. For the first time since she fled, a small bud of hope unfurled.
"Take me to it."
"To the source of the signal," she spoke, her voice stronger now.
"Please."
He stared at her for a beat, his gaze filled with turmoil. His jaw tightened. Then he spoke. "Get your things. We leave at dawn." Chapter 3. Signal of the Lost. Dawn in the outer zones was a bruised and hazy affair, the sun struggling to penetrate the thick layer of smog. Jax's ship, the Stardust Vagabond, was a relic of a bygone era, a sturdy, heavily modified freighter that had seen better days. But it was fast, maneuverable, and most importantly, equipped with a cloaking device that could hopefully evade the corporation's patrols. Alara stood on the landing platform, watching as Jax made his final preparations. He moved with a practiced efficiency, checking the ship systems, loading supplies, and securing the cargo hold. He barely spoke, his focus entirely on the task at hand. She felt a strange mix of anticipation and apprehension. She was leaving everything she knew behind, venturing into the unknown with a man she barely knew. A man who claimed to reject emotions, yet who had reacted so strongly to her touch. "Ready?" Jax asked, his voice brusque. Alara nodded, trying to mask her nervousness. "As I'll ever be." They climbed aboard the Stardust Vagabond. The interior was cramped and utilitarian, a far cry from the sterile, automated environments of Unity. The air smelled of oil, metal, and something indefinably masculine. Jax strapped himself into the pilot's seat, his hands moving over the controls with a familiarity that spoke of countless hours spent in the void. Alara settled into the co-pilot's chair, feeling a sense of displacement. This was his world, not hers. With a roar of engines and a shudder that ran through the entire ship, the Stardust Vagabond lifted off, leaving the crumbling cityscape of the outer zones behind. They ascended rapidly, piercing the thick layer of smog and emerging into the clear, star-studded expanse of space. Alara gasped, her breath catching in her throat. She had seen images of space, of course, but nothing could have prepared her for the sheer, breathtaking beauty of it. The stars, unfiltered by the corporation's atmospheric regulators, blazed with an intensity that made her heart ache. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jax said, his voice softer than usual. He wasn't looking at her, but at the stars, his face illuminated by their ethereal glow. "It's overwhelming," Alara said, her voice hushed. She felt a tear roll down her cheek, a sensation she hadn't experienced in years. It was a strange, bittersweet feeling, a mixture of awe and sadness. Jax glanced at her, his expression unreadable. He didn't comment on her tears, but she sensed a subtle shift in his demeanor, a softening of his usual guardedness. "The signal," he said, turning his attention back to the controls. "It's originating from the Kepler 186F system. A long shot, but it's the only lead we have." Kepler 186F. Alara had accessed the restricted files. It was a planetary system, light years away, once considered a potential candidate for colonization. But the project had been abandoned, deemed too dangerous, too unstable. And then there was the ship, the Heartstar, a vessel that was on the records, and then wasn't. "The Heartstar," Alara said, her voice barely a whisper. "That's where the signal is coming from, isn't it?" Jax nodded, his jaw tight. "According to the fragmented data I've been able to acquire, it was a research vessel sent to Kepler 186F to study the planet's unique emotional properties." Emotional properties? Alara's mind raced. What did that even mean? Could a planet have emotions? "The corporation claims the Heartstar was lost in a catastrophic accident," Jax continued. "All hands perished." But he paused, his fingers tightening on the controls. "I don't believe them." "Neither do I," Alara said, her voice firm. "My parents, they were researching something related to Kepler 186F. Something the corporation wanted to keep secret." A long silence followed, broken only by the hum of the ship's engines. The stars wheeled silently around them, a vast, indifferent backdrop to their desperate quest. Alara looked at Jax, his profile etched against the starlight. He was a mystery, an enigma. A man who had rejected the corporation's control, yet who seemed to carry his own burden of secrets and suppressed emotions. She felt a pull towards him, a connection that defied logic and reason. It was more than just gratitude, more than just shared danger. It was a recognition, a sense of kinship. As they hurtled through the void, towards the source of the signal, Alara knew that she was not only searching for answers about the Heartstar, but also for answers about herself. And, perhaps, about the nature of the forbidden emotions that flickered within her, threatening to shatter the carefully constructed walls of her harmony-conditioned world. Her fear mingled with a strong sense of determination. She would find out the truth. Chapter 4. Shadows of Unity. The journey to Kepler 186F was fraught with peril. They navigated treacherous asteroid fields, evaded corporation patrols, and endured the bone-rattling effects of hyperspace jumps. Jax proved to be a skilled and resourceful pilot, his instincts honed by years of living on the edge. But the danger wasn't just external. As they spent more time together, confined within the cramped quarters of the Stardust Vagabond, Alara found herself increasingly drawn to Jax. His quiet strength, his dry wit, his moments of unexpected vulnerability, they chipped away at her carefully constructed defenses. She caught him watching her sometimes, his gray eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and something else. Something that made her heart beat faster. She, in turn, found herself studying him, tracing the lines of his face, the way his brow furrowed in concentration, the subtle curve of his lips when he allowed himself a rare smile. One evening, after a particularly harrowing escape from a corporation patrol, Alara found Jax in the ship's small galley, staring out at the stars. He had a datapad in his hand, but he wasn't looking at it. He seemed lost in thought, his expression troubled. "What is it?" Alara asked, her voice soft. Jax startled slightly, as if he hadn't realized she was there. He hesitated, then handed her the datapad. "I intercepted a coded transmission from the corporation." Alara took the datapad, her fingers brushing against his. A familiar jolt of sensation ran through her. She focused on the screen, deciphering the coded message. Her blood ran cold. The message was a directive, issued by Supervisor Rylan. It ordered all corporation patrols in the sector to be on high alert for a rogue technician, identified as 743 Alara. The directive described her as emotionally unstable and a threat to the harmony. It authorized the use of lethal force, if necessary. They know, Alara whispered, her voice trembling. They know I'm gone. Jax nodded, his expression grim. They also know about the Stardust Vagabond. They're tracking us. Alara felt a wave of despair wash over her. She had known the risks, of course, but seeing it in black and white, the corporation's cold, calculated pursuit, was terrifying. What do we do? She asked, her voice barely audible. Jax looked at her, his gray eyes filled with a fierce determination. We keep going. We get to Kepler 186F. We find the Heartstar. But they'll be waiting for us, Alara protested. They'll kill us. Jax reached out, his hand covering hers. His touch was warm and reassuring. They won't touch you, he said, his voice low and intense. I promise you. Alara looked into his eyes, and for a moment, she saw something that transcended the cold logic of their situation. She saw care, concern, maybe even affection. It was a forbidden emotion, a dangerous emotion. But in that moment, it was the only thing that mattered. She leaned in, her lips brushing against his. It was a brief, tentative kiss, a fleeting moment of connection in the face of overwhelming danger. But it was enough. It was a spark, a flame, a promise of something more. Jax pulled back, his eyes wide with surprise. He opened his mouth to speak, but then closed it again. He looked away, his jaw tight. We need to focus, he said, his voice rough. We need to get to Kepler 186F. Alara nodded, her heart pounding. She knew he was right, but the kiss had changed everything. It had confirmed what she had suspected all along, that beneath his stoic exterior, Jax felt as deeply as she did. As they resumed their journey, the shadows of unity seemed to loom larger than ever. But now, they were not alone. They had each other. And, perhaps, that was enough to face the darkness ahead. The kiss, however brief, had changed the dynamic, and they both knew it. The stakes had just risen, personally. Chapter 5. The Price of Feeling. The closer they got to Kepler 186F, the stronger the signal became. It pulsed through the ship's systems, resonating with Alara's own body, amplifying the flashes of emotion that she had struggled to suppress for so long. It was exhilarating, but also terrifying. She felt emotions she couldn't name, emotions that were overwhelming in their intensity. Joy, sorrow, fear, longing. They crashed over her like waves, threatening to drown her. Jax, too, was affected. He became more withdrawn, more irritable, his usual stoicism cracking under the strain. He spent hours in the engine room, tinkering with the ship's systems, avoiding Alara's gaze. One day, Alara found him there, surrounded by tools and spare parts. He was hunched over a complex circuit board, his brow furrowed in concentration. Jax? She said softly. He didn't respond. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. He flinched, his muscles tensing. Jax, what's wrong? She asked, her voice filled with concern. He turned to face her, his eyes filled with a raw pain that she had never seen before. It's too much, he said, his voice hoarse. The signal, it's awakening things. Things I thought I'd buried. Alara understood. She was experiencing the same thing. The signal was not only amplifying their emotions, it was dredging up memories, long suppressed traumas, the ghosts of their pasts. I know, she said, her voice trembling. It's happening to me too. Jax looked at her, his gaze searching. My family, he began, then hesitated. They were involved in the development of the harmonizer. My father, he was one of the lead scientists. Alara's eyes widened. This was the secret he had been carrying, the burden of guilt and shame that had driven him to the outer zones. He believed he was doing the right thing, Jax continued, his voice bitter. He believed he was creating a better world. A world free from pain, free from conflict. But he was wrong, Alara said, her voice firm. He was wrong to take away our emotions. He was wrong to rob us of our humanity. Jax nodded, his eyes filled with tears. I know that now, he said. But it's too late. The damage is done. Alara reached out, taking his hand in hers.
It's not too late, she said.
We can still fight. We can still find a way to reverse it. Jax looked at her, his gaze filled with a desperate hope. Do you really believe that? I have to, Alara said. For my parents. For you. For everyone who has been robbed of their emotions. She leaned in, kissing him again. This time it was not tentative, not fleeting. It was a deep, passionate kiss, a merging of two souls, two hearts yearning for connection. Jax responded with an equal fervor, his arms wrapping around her, holding her tight. He kissed her as if he were drowning, and she was the only air he could breathe. The kiss lasted for a long moment, a moment of pure, unfiltered emotion. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless, their bodies trembling. We'll face this together, Alara vowed, looking into his eyes, her voice filled with conviction. Together, Jax echoed, his voice rough with emotion. But as they held each other, a sudden alarm blared through the ship. Red lights flashed. Jax's eyes widened in alarm. We're being scanned, he exclaimed. A corporation ship. They've found us. The price of feeling, it seemed, was about to be paid. The moment of connection was shattered by the harsh reality of their situation. They were cornered, and the corporation was closing in. Chapter 6. Flight Beyond the Veil. Activate the cloaking device. Alara shouted over the blaring alarm. Jax scrambled to the control panel, his fingers flying over the switches. The Stardust Vagabond shuddered as the cloaking device engaged, its energy signature fading from the corporation ship's sensors. It's working for now, Jax said, his voice tense. But their scanners are advanced. They'll detect us eventually. We need to get to Kepler 186f, Alara said, her mind racing. The signal it's strongest there. Maybe there's something there that can help us. Jax nodded, his jaw tight. It's our only chance. He piloted the Stardust Vagabond towards the distant, shimmering glow of Kepler 186f. The planet was a breathtaking sight, a swirling tapestry of blues, greens, and purples, surrounded by a luminous, ethereal ring. It's beautiful, Alara whispered, her eyes wide with awe. And dangerous, Jax added, his voice grim. The planet's atmosphere is highly unstable. There are intense electromagnetic storms, unpredictable gravitational fields as they approach the planet. The Stardust Vagabond was buffeted by powerful winds and electrical discharges. The ship groaned and creaked, its systems straining under the pressure. We're losing the cloak, Jax shouted, struggling to maintain control. The electromagnetic interference is too strong. On the main view screen, a sleek, black corporation warship materialized, its weapon systems locking onto the Stardust Vagabond. We're trapped, Alara cried, her heart pounding with fear. Jax's eyes narrowed. He slammed his fist on the control panel. Not yet, he said, his voice filled with a fierce determination. He engaged the ship's emergency thrusters, sending the Stardust Vagabond hurtling towards the planet's surface. It was a desperate gamble, a suicidal maneuver. But it was their only chance. Hold on, Jax yelled, his voice strained. Alara gripped the arms of her chair, her body pressed back by the intense G-forces. The Stardust Vagabond plummeted through the atmosphere, a fiery meteor streaking across the alien sky. The corporation warship fired, its energy beams narrowly missing the Stardust Vagabond. But the ship was too fast, too maneuverable. It evaded the blasts, weaving through the turbulent atmosphere, dodging lightning strikes and gravitational anomalies. Jax was flying on pure instinct, his senses heightened by the adrenaline, by the raw, unfiltered fear. He was pushing the Stardust Vagabond to its limits and beyond. They crashed through a dense layer of clouds, emerging into a surreal, otherworldly landscape. Giant, bioluminescent trees towered over a swirling, mist-covered landscape. Strange, Ethereal creatures floated through the air, their bodies shimmering with an otherworldly glow. "Where are we?" Alara asked, her voice filled with awe and disbelief. "I don't know," Jack said, his voice hoarse. "But I think we've found it. The source of the signal." The Stardust Vagabond, battered and damaged, limped towards a clearing, its landing gear barely functional. They had made it. They had reached Kepler 186f. But their escape had come at a cost. The ship was severely damaged, and the Corporation warship was still out there, searching for them. As they touched down with a jarring thud, the ship's systems began to fail. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. "We're stranded," Alara said, her voice trembling. Jax didn't respond. He was staring out at the alien landscape, his eyes filled with a mixture of wonder and trepidation. He knew that they had entered a world beyond their comprehension, a world where the rules of harmony no longer applied. A place where emotions ran wild. And he had a feeling they were about to discover just how wild things could get. They had evaded immediate capture, but at a great cost. Chapter 7. Whispers of the Past. The silence of the alien forest was profound, broken only by the creaking of the damaged Stardust Vagabond and the strange, rhythmic hum that emanated from everywhere. It was the signal, amplified, almost tangible. Alara felt it vibrating in her bones, stirring emotions she had never experienced before. Jax, despite his usual stoicism, seemed equally affected. He stood by the viewport, his hand pressed against the cold plasteel, his gaze fixed on the otherworldly landscape. His jaw was tight, his shoulders tense. He looked as though he were fighting a battle within himself. "Jax?" Alara asked softly, approaching him. He didn't respond, didn't even seem to notice her presence. She placed a hand on his arm, and he flinched, his muscles coiling. "It's overwhelming," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The feeling Alara understood. She was feeling it too. The raw, unfiltered emotions of Kepler 186f were seeping into her, bypassing the remnants of her harmonizer's control. It was like being born again into a world of vibrant, terrifying sensation. She looked out at the forest. The giant, bioluminescent trees pulsed with a soft, ethereal light, illuminating the swirling mist that covered the ground. Strange, winged creatures flitted through the air, their bodies shimmering with iridescent colors. It was a scene of breathtaking beauty, but also of profound strangeness. "We need to find the Heartstar," Alara said, trying to focus on their mission. "It's the source of the signal. It must be somewhere nearby." Jax nodded slowly, his gaze still fixed on the forest. "It's calling to us," he said, his voice strangely distant.
"Can you hear it?"
Alara listened. At first, she heard only the hum of the signal. But then, beneath that, she detected something else. A faint, rhythmic pulsing, like a heartbeat. It was coming from the depths of the forest. "Yes," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "I hear it." They gathered what supplies they could salvage from the damaged Stardust Vagabond, a medkit, a few energy cells, a portable scanner, and Jax's blaster. They knew that venturing into the alien forest was dangerous, but they had no choice. As they stepped out of the ship, the humid air enveloped them, thick with the scent of exotic flora and something else, something indefinably alien. The ground was soft and spongy beneath their feet, covered in a layer of phosphorescent moss. They moved slowly, cautiously, their senses on high alert. The forest was alive with strange sounds, the chirping and clicking of unseen creatures, the rustling of leaves, the distant roar of something large and unknown. The signal led them deeper and deeper into the forest, towards a towering cluster of bioluminescent trees. As they approached, Alara noticed something strange. The trees were arranged in a perfect circle, their branches intertwined to form a natural dome. In the center of the circle, nestled amongst the glowing roots, lay a large, metallic object. It was the Heartstar, or at least a part of it. It was a large, cylindrical module, its surface scarred and blackened by the crash. But it was still intact, still emitting that powerful, rhythmic signal. As they drew closer, Alara felt a wave of intense emotion wash over her. It was a mixture of sorrow, longing, and hope. It was as if the Heartstar itself were communicating with her, sharing its memories, its pain, its dreams. Jax, too, was visibly affected. He stumbled, his hand flying to his head. The voices he whispered, his voice filled with anguish. "I can hear them." The crew, Alara, realized what was happening. The Heartstar was not just emitting a signal, it was transmitting the emotions of its crew, the emotions they had experienced at the moment of the crash. The echoes of their final moments, preserved in the planet's unique energy field. This was what her parents had been researching. This was the secret the corporation had tried to bury. A wave of sadness, intense and all-consuming, washed over Alara. She gasped and put a hand on her chest, trying to ease the feeling. "Jax, we have to find a way to." Alara started but then stopped. Jax stood, transfixed, staring at the Heartstar module, tears streaming down his face. The whispers of the past had enveloped them, and the emotional weight was almost unbearable. They had found the lost ship, but the cost was proving to be higher than they could have ever imagined. Chapter 8. The Heartstar's Call. Jax collapsed to his knees, his body racked with sobs. Alara rushed to his side, kneeling beside him, placing a comforting hand on his back. She could feel the raw, unfiltered grief pouring out of him, a torrent of emotion unleashed after years of suppression. "Jax," she said softly, her own voice trembling with emotion. "It's okay. Let it out." He didn't respond, didn't seem to hear her. He was lost in the echoes of the Heartstar, reliving the final moments of its crew, experiencing their terror, their pain, their love. Alara, too, was overwhelmed by the emotional onslaught. But she knew that she had to stay strong, for Jax, for herself, for the mission. She had to find a way to control the signal, to harness its power, before it consumed them both. She focused her attention on the Heartstar module. The rhythmic pulsing of the signal seemed to be emanating from a panel on its side, a panel that was slightly ajar. "Jax," she said, her voice gaining strength. "We need to open that panel. There must be a control mechanism, a way to modulate the signal." Jax slowly raised his head, his eyes red and swollen. He looked at Alara, his gaze filled with a mixture of pain and gratitude. He nodded slowly, his body still trembling. Together, they approached the panel. It was heavy, rusted, and partially fused shut. They struggled to pry it open, their hands slipping on the smooth metal. "It's stuck," Jax said, his voice hoarse. Alara gritted her teeth, her determination fueled by a surge of adrenaline. She remembered the flashes she sometimes got, and focused hard, trying to channel anything she could into additional strength. She wedged her fingers into a narrow crack, and pulled with all her might. With a groan of protesting metal, the panel suddenly gave way. Alara stumbled back, nearly falling. Jax caught her, his arm wrapping around her waist. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "Yes," Alara said, her breath coming in ragged gasps.
I'm fine."
They looked inside the panel. It contained a complex array of circuits, crystals, and strange, glowing devices. In the center, a single, large crystal pulsed with a brilliant, multicolored light. It was the source of the signal, the heart of the Heartstar. "What do we do?" Jax asked, his voice hesitant. Alara didn't know. She had no experience with this kind of technology. But she felt a strange intuition, a guidance from the signal itself. She reached out, her fingers hovering over the crystal. She closed her eyes, focusing her mind, trying to connect with the Heartstar's energy. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her mind. It was not a spoken voice, but a feeling, a thought, a memory. It was the voice of the Heartstar's captain, a woman named Lyra. "Do not be afraid," the voice said. "The Heartstar is here to help."
To heal.
Alara opened her eyes, her gaze fixed on the crystal. She understood now. The Heartstar was not just a research vessel, it was a therapeutic device, designed to amplify and channel emotions, to help people reconnect with their feelings. We need to desynchronize with it, Alara said, her voice filled with a newfound confidence. We need to let it guide us. Jax looked at her, his expression skeptical. Are you sure about this? I am, Alara said, meeting his gaze. I trust it. I trust her. She placed her hand on the crystal. Jax hesitated for a moment, then placed his hand on top of hers. A surge of energy flowed through them, a wave of pure, unfiltered emotion. It was intense, overwhelming, but also healing. It was as if the Heartstar were cleansing them, purging them of their suppressed traumas, their fears, their doubts. They stood there, hand in hand, bathed in the crystal's light, tears streaming down their faces. They were reliving not only the Heartstar crew's emotions but also their own, their shared experiences, their growing love for each other. When the surge finally subsided, they were both trembling, exhausted, but also renewed. They felt a sense of peace, of clarity, of connection that they had never experienced before. I understand now, Jax said, his voice filled with awe. The corporation, they were afraid. Afraid of the power of emotion. Afraid of the Heartstar. But they were wrong, Alara said, her voice firm. Emotions are not a weakness. They are our strength. They are what make us human. They had touched the core, and it had fundamentally changed them, but danger still lurked. As they stood there, a sharp beeping noise came from Jax's wrist. Calm, they've found us again, he grimaced. Chapter 9. Broken Bonds, Forged Trust. Jax deactivated the wrist comm, silencing the insistent beeping. They're close, he said, his voice grim. We don't have much time. We need to get the Heartstar operational, Alara said, her mind racing. If we can amplify the signal, maybe we can disrupt the harmonizers, free the people of Unity. Jax nodded, his eyes filled with a fierce determination. It's a long shot, but it's our only chance. They returned to the control panel, studying the complex array of circuits and devices. Alara, guided by the Heartstar's intuitive interface, began to adjust the settings, channeling the energy flow, amplifying the signal. Jax, meanwhile, worked on repairing the Stardust Vagabond's communication systems. If they could get a message out, maybe they could rally support, contact the rebels in the outer zones. As they worked, the forest around them seemed to come alive. The bioluminescent trees pulsed with a brighter light. The strange creatures flitted through the air with increased urgency. The very air crackled with energy. It's working, Alara said, her voice filled with excitement. The signal, it's growing stronger. But their efforts did not go unnoticed. The ground began to tremble, the trees shook, and a blinding light erupted from the sky. The corporation warship had found them. We're out of time, Jax shouted, grabbing his blaster. He ran towards the entrance of the Heartstar module, taking up a defensive position. Alara, despite her fear, stood her ground, continuing to work on the control panel. She knew that she had to keep the signal amplified, no matter the cost. The first wave of corporation security drones descended from the warship, their weapon systems locked onto Jax. He fired, his blaster bolts striking the drones, sending them crashing to the ground. But more kept coming, an endless stream of metallic death. Alara, meanwhile, was struggling to maintain control of the Heartstar's energy. The signal was growing too strong, too fast. It was overwhelming her, threatening to overload her circuits.
Jax,
she cried, her voice filled with desperation. I can't hold it. Jax, seeing her struggle, knew that he had to make a choice. He could continue to fight the drones, buying her time, or he could help her control the signal. He knew that if the signal went out of control, it could destroy them all. He made his decision. He turned and ran back to the control panel, joining Alara. He placed his hand on hers, their fingers intertwining. Together, he said, his voice firm. Together, they focused their minds, channeling their emotions, their love for each other, into the Heartstar's energy. They synchronized their heartbeats, their breaths, their very beings. The signal surged, then stabilized. It pulsed with a steady, rhythmic beat, resonating with the planet's energy field, spreading outwards, towards Unity, towards the harmonizers, towards the suppressed hearts of millions. The corporation drones, caught in the wave of amplified emotion, began to malfunction. They sputtered, their movements becoming erratic, their weapon systems failing. They crashed to the ground, inert. The warship, too, was affected. Its shields flickered, its engines sputtered, its systems began to shut down. It hung in the air, a crippled giant, its power waning. Alara and Jax, exhausted but triumphant, looked at each other, their eyes filled with a mixture of relief and something more. They had done it. They had unleashed the power of emotion, broken the corporation's control. But their victory was short-lived. A figure emerged from the disabled warship, descending to the ground on a personal transport platform. It was Supervisor Rylan, his face a mask of cold fury. He held a weapon in his hand, a device unlike anything Alara had ever seen before. "You have failed, Technician 743 Alara," Rylan said, his voice amplified by the platform speakers. "You have disrupted the harmony. But you will not succeed. I will restore order." He raised his weapon, aiming it at Alara. Jax stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. "Run, Alara," he shouted. "Get to the Stardust Vagabond." But Alara refused to leave him. She stood her ground, her gaze fixed on Rylan. She knew that this was the final confrontation, the ultimate test of their love, their courage, their belief in the power of emotion. Rylan fired. The bonds were broken, society's rules shattered, but trust between Alara and Jax was forged in the heat of the battle. However, Rylan's arrival signaled that the conflict was far from over. Chapter 10. The Corporation's Gaze. The weapon Rylan fired emitted a beam of concentrated energy, a disruptive force designed to overload the harmonizers, to permanently sever the connection to emotion. It was a weapon of last resort, a weapon of ultimate control. Jax, shielding Alara with his body, took the full force of the blast. He cried out in pain, his body convulsing. Alara screamed, reaching for him, but it was too late. He collapsed to the ground, his eyes vacant, his expression blank. The harmonizer, it seemed, had been reactivated, even stronger than before. Jax was lost to her. Rylan advanced, his face a mask of cold triumph. "The harmony is restored," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "You will be reintegrated, Technician 743 Alara. And this abomination," he gestured towards the Heartstar, "will be destroyed." Alara stared at Rylan, her heart filled with a mixture of rage and despair. She had lost Jax, lost the man she loved, lost the hope of a future free from emotional suppression. But she would not surrender. She would not let Rylan win. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to give up now. She looked at Jax, lying motionless on the ground. A flicker of memory, a ghost of a feeling, stirred within her. She remembered his touch, his kiss, his words of love and support. She focused on that memory, on that feeling, channeling it, amplifying it. She reached out, placing her hand on the Heartstar's crystal. "Lyra," she whispered, her voice filled with a desperate plea.
"Help me."
"Help us." The Heartstar responded. The crystal pulsed with a brilliant light, a wave of energy emanating outwards, engulfing Alara, Jax, and Rylan. Rylan cried out in pain, his body convulsing. The weapon fell from his hand, clattering to the ground. He staggered back, his face contorted in a mask of terror. What is this?" he stammered, his voice filled with a raw, unfiltered fear. The amplified emotions of the Heartstar, combined with Alara's own focused will, were overwhelming Rylan's harmonizer, shattering his carefully constructed control, exposing him to the full force of human feeling. He collapsed to his knees, his body racked with sobs. He was experiencing emotions he had never felt before, emotions he had been trained to suppress, emotions he had deemed a weakness. Grief, regret, shame, they washed over him, drowning him in a sea of unfamiliar sensation. Alara, meanwhile, was focused on Jax. The Heartstar's energy was flowing through her, into him, breaking down the reactivated harmonizer, reawakening his suppressed emotions. She knelt beside him, taking his hand in hers. "Jax," she whispered, her voice filled with love and hope. "Can you hear me?" His eyes flickered open. He looked at Alara, his gaze filled with confusion, then recognition, then love. "Alara," he said, his voice weak but clear. I remember." He struggled to sit up, his body still trembling from the ordeal. Alara helped him, supporting him, holding him close. It's over," he said, his voice filled with relief. "Rylan," they looked at Rylan, still kneeling on the ground, his body racked with sobs. He was a broken man, stripped of his power, his control, his very identity. The corporation's gaze, it seemed, had been turned inward, its own weapon used against it. But the victory was bittersweet. They had won, but at a great cost. The Stardust Vagabond was destroyed.
Jax was weak.
The future remained uncertain, the path to freedom still fraught with peril. But for now, all that mattered was their survival and the small measure of revenge they had taken upon the corporation. Chapter 11. Echoes of Rebellion. The immediate threat was neutralized, but Alara and Jax were still stranded on Kepler 186f, with a disabled corporation warship looming above and a broken Rylan weeping nearby. The long-term consequences of their actions were still unknown. "We need to get off this planet," Jax said, his voice still weak, but gaining strength. "Before they send reinforcements." Alara nodded, her mind racing. The Stardust Vagabond was beyond repair, but the corporation warship, it was damaged, but possibly salvageable.
"The warship," she said. "Can you fly it?"
Jax hesitated. "It's different technology. More advanced. But I think I can manage it." The basic principles are the same. They helped each other to their feet, supporting Rylan, who was still in a state of emotional shock. He offered no resistance, his will completely broken. He was a shell of his former self. They made their way to the warship's transport platform, Jax and Alara supporting Rylan, boarding it, and ascending to the crippled vessel. The interior was eerily silent, the crew either incapacitated or gone. Jax, guided by Alara's knowledge of corporation technology, managed to access the ship's control systems. He bypassed the security protocols, reactivated the engines, and initiated a pre-programmed launch sequence. With a shudder and a roar, the warship lifted off, leaving Kepler 186f behind. They were escaping, but they were also flying into the unknown. As they ascended, Alara looked back at the planet, at the swirling mists and glowing forests, at the Heartstar, now silent and dormant. She felt a pang of sadness, a sense of loss. She was leaving behind a part of herself, a part of her past. But she was also carrying a part of Kepler 186f with her. The Heartstar's energy, its memories, its emotions, were now a part of her, a part of Jax. They were changed forever. They set a course for the outer zones, hoping to find refuge among the rebels, to regroup, to plan their next move. The journey was tense, fraught with uncertainty. They didn't know what awaited them, what the corporation's response would be. As they traveled, Alara began to experiment with the Heartstar's energy, learning to control it, to channel it, to use it as a weapon, a tool, a source of healing. She discovered that she could amplify emotions, project them outwards, influence the minds of others. She used this ability to keep Rylan subdued, to prevent him from causing any trouble. She also used it to communicate with Jax, to share her thoughts, her feelings, her fears, her hopes. They grew closer, their bond deepening, their love strengthening. They were no longer just two individuals fighting for survival. They were a unit, a force, a symbol of rebellion. They also received a signal, a faint, fragmented message originating from the outer zones. It was a call to arms, a plea for help. The rebels were rising up, inspired by the wave of emotion that had swept through Unity, disrupting the harmonizers, awakening the suppressed masses. Alara and Jax knew that they had to answer that call. They had to join the fight, to lead the rebellion, to liberate the people of Unity, to create a future where emotions were not a weakness, but a source of strength, of connection, of humanity. The echoes of their actions on Kepler 186f were reverberating across the galaxy, igniting a spark of hope in the hearts of the oppressed. The rebellion had begun. Chapter 12. Sanctuary's Risk. The outer zones were in chaos. The wave of emotion that had emanated from Kepler 186f, amplified by Alera's efforts, had shattered the Harmony's control in pockets across the colonized systems. Rebellions had sprung up, fueled by a sudden, overwhelming surge of rediscovered feelings. Jax, piloting the captured corporation warship with a practiced ease that belied its unfamiliar technology, navigated them towards a hidden rebel base on a remote asteroid, codenamed Sanctuary. The coordinates had been embedded in the fragmented message they'd received. "We're approaching Sanctuary," Jax announced, his voice tight with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. "Prepare for docking procedures." Alera, seated beside him in the cockpit, monitored the sensor readings. The asteroid was heavily shielded, its energy signature masked to evade detection. It was a testament to the rebels' ingenuity and desperation. As they drew closer, a calm channel crackled to life. "Unidentified vessel, state your intentions," a gruff voice demanded. Jax responded, identifying himself and Alera, explaining their situation, and requesting permission to dock. There was a long silence, filled with static. Alera could feel the tension radiating from Jax, his hands gripping the controls. Finally, the voice responded. "Jax? Alera? We've heard rumors. About Kepler 186f. About the Heartstar." The voice was hesitant, filled with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "It's true," Alera said, stepping forward, her voice clear and strong. "We've unleashed the power of emotion. We've broken the Harmony's control." Another silence, even longer this time. Then, a different voice, softer, more feminine. "Welcome home, children. Sanctuary awaits." The asteroid's shield shimmered, revealing a hidden docking bay, large enough to accommodate the warship. Jax expertly maneuvered the vessel inside, the massive doors closing behind them, sealing them off from the void. They were greeted by a group of rebels, a motley collection of humans, cyborgs, and even a few alien species, all united by their rejection of the Harmony's control. They looked at Alera and Jax with a mixture of awe and suspicion. The leader of the rebels, a woman named Anya, stepped forward. She was tall, strong, with a cybernetic eye that glowed with an intense blue light. She studied Alera and Jax, her gaze piercing. "You've caused quite a stir," Anya said, her voice neutral. "The corporation is in disarray. But they're also enraged. They're mobilizing their forces. They're coming for us." "We know," Jax said, his voice grim. "We're ready to fight." "We have something they want," Alera added, her hand instinctively going to her chest, where the Heartstar's energy resided within her. "Something they fear."
Anya nodded slowly.
"We've heard whispers of this Heartstar. A device that amplifies emotions. A weapon." "It's more than a weapon," Alera said, her voice firm. "It's a key. A key to unlocking our humanity. A key to freeing ourselves from the Harmony's control." Anya looked at Alera, her gaze softening. Perhaps you're right. But Sanctuary is at risk. The corporation knows we're here. They'll be attacking soon." Alera and Jax exchanged a look. They had found refuge, but it was temporary. The fight was far from over. They were in the heart of the rebellion, but the Sanctuary they had found was under imminent threat. The risk was immense, and the stakes were higher than ever. Chapter 13. The Truth Serum. The atmosphere in Sanctuary was tense. The rebels, despite their newfound emotional freedom, were bracing for the inevitable corporation attack. Preparations were underway. Weapons were being distributed, defenses were being fortified, escape routes were being planned. Alera, however, felt a growing unease. While the open display of emotion was liberating, it was also chaotic. Fear, anger, and grief were rampant, threatening to undermine the rebels' unity and resolve. "We need to find a way to channel this energy," Alera said to Jax, as they walked through the bustling command center. "To use it constructively, not destructively." Jax nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. The Heartstar's energy, it's too raw, too unpredictable. We need to refine it, to stabilize it. They decided to interrogate Rylan. He was still their prisoner, kept under close guard in a secure holding cell. He was a broken man, stripped of his harmonizer and his authority, but he still possessed valuable knowledge about the corporation's inner workings. They entered the holding cell, finding Rylan huddled in a corner, his eyes vacant, his body trembling. He looked up at them, his expression a mixture of fear and something else. Something that looked like regret. "Rylan," Alara said, her voice firm but compassionate. "We need your help." Rylan didn't respond, didn't even seem to hear her. He was lost in his own emotional turmoil, reliving the horrors he had inflicted, the lives he had ruined. Alara, using her newfound ability to manipulate emotions, reached out to Rylan, projecting a sense of calm, of peace, of forgiveness. She touched his mind, gently probing his memories, searching for information. Rylan flinched, his body tensing. He looked at Alara, his eyes widening in surprise. "You can do that?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Yes," Alara said. "The Heartstar has changed me. It has changed us both." She continued to probe his mind, carefully navigating the labyrinth of his suppressed memories, his buried guilt, his shattered beliefs. She discovered a secret, a hidden truth that the corporation had desperately tried to conceal. "The harmonizer, it's not just a suppressor," Alara said, her voice filled with a growing realization. "It's also a recorder. It stores every emotion, every thought, every memory that it suppresses." Jax's eyes widened. "So all those lost emotions, they're still there? Trapped within the harmonizers?" "Yes," Alara said. "And there's a way to retrieve them. A serum. A truth serum, developed by the corporation to extract information from recalcitrant subjects." Rylan, his eyes filled with a flicker of hope, nodded slowly. "Project Veritas," he whispered. It's kept in a secure vault. In Unity, in the Harmony Tower, a plan began to form in Alara's mind. A daring, reckless plan. They would infiltrate Unity, steal the truth serum, and unleash it on the population, restoring their lost emotions, shattering the Harmony's control once and for all. But it was a suicide mission. The Harmony Tower was the most heavily guarded building in Unity, the heart of the corporation's power. "It's too dangerous," Jax said, his voice filled with concern. "We can't risk it." "We have to," Alara said, her voice firm. "It's the only way. It's the only way to truly free people. Not just break the control, but restore what was taken." Rylan, for the first time, seemed to align with them, albeit weakly. "The serum, it's the key," he murmured. The truth serum was the new objective, a dangerous but potentially decisive tool in their fight. The risk was immense, but the potential reward, the complete liberation of Unity, was worth it. Chapter 14. Jax's Secret. The decision was made. They would infiltrate Unity, steal the truth serum, and unleash it on the population. It was a desperate gamble, a suicide mission, but they saw no other option. Anya, despite her initial reservations, agreed to provide them with the resources they needed: a cloaked shuttle, forged identification papers, and a detailed map of the Harmony Tower's security systems. She also assigned a small team of experienced rebels to assist them. "This is madness," Anya said, her voice grim. "But it's the kind of madness that might just work. Be careful, children. The fate of the rebellion, the fate of humanity rests on your shoulders." As they prepared for their mission, Alara noticed a change in Jax's demeanor. He became withdrawn, distant, his usual stoicism replaced by a haunted look. He spent hours in the shuttle's cockpit, staring at the star charts, his brow furrowed in thought. "Jax," Alara asked softly, approaching him. "What's wrong?" He didn't respond, didn't even seem to hear her. She placed a hand on his shoulder, and he flinched, his muscles tensing. "Jax," she repeated, her voice filled with concern.
"Talk to me."
He turned to face her, his eyes filled with a raw pain that she had never seen before. I can't do this," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Alara's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "Unity, the Harmony Tower, it's where it all began," he said, his voice trembling. My family, my father. He couldn't continue. He buried his face in his hands, his body shaking with suppressed sobs. Alara realized what was happening. The prospect of returning to Unity, to the scene of his family's betrayal, was triggering his long-buried trauma, his guilt, his shame. She knelt beside him, taking his hands in hers. "Jax," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I understand. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel everything." He looked at her, his eyes filled with tears. "But I'm not strong enough," he said. I'll fail. I'll let you down." "No," Alara said, her voice unwavering. "You won't. You're the strongest person I know. You've faced your fears. You've overcome your conditioning. You've embraced your emotions. You can do this." She leaned in, kissing him softly, her lips brushing against his. It was a kiss of reassurance, of love, of shared hope. Jax responded, his arms wrapping around her, holding her tight. He kissed her back, his passion fueled by a desperate need for connection, for strength, for forgiveness. When they finally broke apart, Jax's eyes were still filled with pain, but there was also a flicker of something else. Something that looked like resolve. I have a confession," he said, his voice hesitant. "Something I should have told you before." Alara waited, her heart pounding in her chest. "My father, he didn't just help create the harmonizer," Jax said, his voice trembling. He also created a failsafe. A way to disable all the harmonizers at once. A kill switch." Alara's eyes widened in disbelief. "A kill switch? Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because it's located in the Harmony Tower," Jax said. "In the same vault as the Truth Serum. And it requires a biometric scan." "My biometric scan." He looked at Alara, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame and hope. "I'm the key, Alara. Not just to getting in, but to shutting it all down. Forever." Alara realized the implications of this revelation. It was a game changer. It was a chance to end the Harmony's control, not just temporarily, but permanently. But it also meant that Jax would have to face his demons, confront his past, and put himself in mortal danger. His personal secret was now the core of the mission. Chapter 15. The Heartstar's Embrace. The cloaked shuttle, piloted by Jax, slipped through Unity's defenses undetected. The forged identification papers and the rebel team's expertise in bypassing security systems proved invaluable. They landed on a deserted rooftop, a few blocks from a Harmony Tower. The city was eerily silent, the streets deserted, the buildings gleaming under the artificial sun. The wave of emotion that had swept through Unity had disrupted the normal routines, but the corporation's control, though weakened, was still in effect. They made their way through the back alleys, avoiding the surveillance cameras and the occasional patrol drones. Alara, using her ability to sense and manipulate emotions, guided them, detecting the presence of harmonized citizens and steering them clear. They reached the Harmony Tower, a towering monolith of steel and glass, the symbol of the corporation's power. The entrance was heavily guarded, but the rebel team, using a combination of stealth and technological sabotage, managed to create a diversion, drawing the guards away. Jax, his face pale but determined, approached the biometric scanner. He placed his hand on the device, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the ghosts of his past swirling around him, the weight of his family's legacy pressing down on him. The scanner beeped, recognizing his biometric signature. The heavy doors slid open, granting them access to the heart of the corporation's darkness. They entered a vast, sterile lobby, the walls lined with portraits of the corporation's founders, including Jax's father. He stared at the image, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger, sorrow, and forgiveness. "Let's do this," he said, his voice firm. They followed the map Anya had provided, navigating the labyrinthine corridors, avoiding the security checkpoints and the patrolling guards. Alara, using her Heartstar enhanced abilities, projected a field of calm around them, masking their emotional signatures, making them virtually invisible to the harmonized personnel. They reached the vault, a massive steel door, protected by multiple layers of security. Jax approached the biometric scanner, his hand trembling slightly. He placed his hand on the device, his heart pounding in his chest. The scanner beeped, recognizing his biometric signature. The heavy door slid open, revealing the contents of the vault, rows upon rows of storage containers filled with the truth serum, and, in the center, a single, glowing console, the harmonizer kill switch. As they entered the vault, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Supervisor Rylan, his face no longer a mask of cold detachment, but a twisted mockery of human emotion. He was holding a weapon, a modified version of the device he had used on Kepler 186F. "I knew you would come," Rylan said, his voice raspy and uneven, still grappling with the aftereffects of his emotional overload. "I knew you would try to destroy the harmony." "It's over, Rylan," Alara said, her voice firm. "You've lost." Rylan laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you've won? You've unleashed chaos. You've destroyed everything." He raised his weapon, aiming it at Alara. Jax stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. But before Rylan could fire, Alara reached out, her hand glowing with the Heartstar's energy. She projected a wave of intense emotion, a concentrated blast of love, compassion, and forgiveness, directly at Rylan. He cried out in pain, his body convulsing. The weapon fell from his hand, clattering to the ground. He collapsed to his knees, his face contorted in a mask of understanding. He looked at Alara, his eyes filled with tears. "I see now," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I was wrong." He closed his eyes, his body slumping to the floor, finally at peace. Alara turned to Jax, who looked at her, amazed. You saved us." "We saved each other," she corrected, softly. Then she added, "Let's finish this." Jax nodded, his heart filled with renewed purpose. He and Alara approached the console together. They placed their hands on the activation switch. This was it, the moment of truth. The Heartstar's energy flowed through them, amplifying their intention, their love, their hope for a future free from emotional suppression. They were ready to embrace the full power of their humanity and to share it with the world. Chapter 16. Captured Sparks. Jax and Alara simultaneously pressed the activation switch. A surge of energy pulsed through the console, spreading outwards, through the Harmony Tower, through Unity, through the entire network of harmonizers. A low hum filled the air, growing in intensity, resonating with the Heartstar's energy within Alara. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the ground began to tremble. On the streets of Unity, and in countless other cities across the colonized worlds, people staggered, clutching their heads, their faces contorted in a mixture of pain and awakening. The harmonizers, their control shattered, were releasing the pent-up emotions of a lifetime. Screams, sobs, laughter, and cries of rage echoed through the streets, a cacophony of raw, unfiltered feeling. The harmony, the corporation's reign of emotional suppression, was crumbling. But the victory was not without its immediate consequences. The sudden release of emotions caused widespread chaos. Riots broke out, buildings were vandalized, and old grievances erupted into open conflict. In the vault, Jax and Alara watched the monitors, their faces filled with a mixture of triumph and concern. They had unleashed the power of emotion, but they had also unleashed a storm. "We need to find a way to guide this energy," Alara said, her voice strained. "To help people cope with this awakening." Jax nodded, his mind racing. "The truth serum, we still have it. If we can distribute it, maybe it can help people process their emotions, understand their past, find a way to heal." They quickly gathered the containers of truth serum, loading them onto a portable transport unit. They knew that they had to act fast, before the chaos consumed everything. As they were about to leave the vault, the doors suddenly slammed shut, trapping them inside. A voice echoed through the speakers, a cold, familiar voice, filled with a chillingly calm authority. "Well done, Technician 743 Alara. And Jax. You have played your parts perfectly." Alara and Jax whirled around, their eyes searching the shadows. A figure emerged, stepping into the light. It was the CEO of the Harmony Corporation, the man who had orchestrated the entire system of emotional suppression, the ultimate architect of their suffering. He was an older man, his face lined and weary, but his eyes burned with an intense, unwavering conviction. He held a small, silver device in his hand, a remote control. "You thought you could defeat me?" the CEO said, his voice smooth and condescending. "You thought you could destroy the Harmony? You were merely pawns in a larger game." He pressed a button on the remote control. The vault doors remained sealed. The harmonizers were never meant to suppress emotions permanently, the CEO continued. They were designed to collect them, to store them, to concentrate them. And now, thanks to you, I have enough raw emotional energy to power my ultimate creation. He gestured towards a large, previously hidden chamber at the back of the vault. The walls shimmered, revealing a massive, complex machine, pulsating with a dark, ominous energy. "Project Chimera," the CEO said, his voice filled with a twisted pride. "A device that will allow me to reshape reality itself, to create a new world order, based on my vision of perfect harmony." He smiled, a chilling, unsettling smile. "And you, my dear Alara, will be the catalyst. Your Heartstar enhanced abilities, your connection to the raw emotional energy, you will be the key to unlocking Chimera's full potential." He had captured them, not to stop them, but to use them. The sparks of rebellion they had ignited were now fuel for his ultimate, terrifying plan. Chapter 17. The Depths of Deception. Alara and Jax were trapped. The CEO's revelation had turned their victory into a terrifying trap. They had not destroyed the Harmony, they had inadvertently empowered its ultimate, twisted evolution. "You're insane," Alara said, her voice filled with disgust. "You can't control reality. You can't force your vision of harmony on everyone." The CEO chuckled, a cold, humorless sound. "Oh, but I can, my dear. And I will. With Project Chimera, I will reshape the universe in my image. A universe of perfect order, perfect control, perfect emptiness." He approached Alara, his eyes fixated on her. "You will be the heart of this new world, Alara. Your power, amplified by Chimera, will be the engine of creation. You will be a goddess." Alara recoiled, her skin crawling. "I will never help you," she said, her voice unwavering. "I will fight you to my last breath." The CEO smiled, a chilling, condescending smile. "You have no choice, my dear. You are already connected to Chimera. Your Heartstar energy, it's already flowing into the machine." He gestured towards the massive device, pulsating with a dark, ominous energy. Alara could feel it, a subtle pull, a draining sensation, as if her very life force were being siphoned away. Jax, seeing Alara's distress, lunged at the CEO, attempting to tackle him. But the CEO, with surprising speed and agility, sidestepped the attack and pressed a button on his remote control. Jax cried out in pain, his body convulsing. He collapsed to the floor, his muscles locked in spasm. The remote control, it seemed, was not just for the vault doors, it was also linked to the remnants of Jax's harmonizer, allowing the CEO to inflict pain and control his movements. "Don't hurt him," Alara pleaded, her voice filled with desperation. The CEO ignored her, turning his attention back to the Chimera machine. "It's time," he said, his voice filled with a twisted excitement. "It's time to begin the transformation." He approached the console, his fingers hovering over the activation switch. Alara knew that she had to act fast before he could unleash Chimera's power. She focused her mind, channeling the Heartstar's energy, trying to disrupt the connection between herself and the machine. But it was too strong, too overwhelming. She could feel her will weakening, her resistance crumbling. She looked at Jax, lying helpless on the floor, his eyes filled with pain and fear. She knew that she couldn't give up. She had to fight for him, for herself, for the future of humanity. She closed her eyes, drawing on every ounce of her strength, her love, her hope. She remembered the Heartstar's message, the voice of Lyra. "Do not be afraid. The Heartstar is here to help, to heal." She opened her eyes, her gaze fixed on the CEO. She reached out, her hand glowing with a brilliant, multicolored light. She projected a wave of intense emotion, not at the CEO, but at the chimera machine itself. She poured all her love, all her compassion, all her hope for a better future into the machine, attempting to overload its circuits, to disrupt its dark energy, to heal it. The machine sputtered, its ominous hum faltering. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and the ground began to tremble. The CEO, startled, turned to face Alara, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "What are you doing?" he screamed, his voice barely audible over the growing chaos. "Stop it. You'll destroy everything." Alara didn't stop. She continued to pour her energy into the machine, pushing it to its limits and beyond. She was willing to sacrifice herself, to destroy Chimera, even if it meant destroying herself in the process. The depths of the CEO's deception were clear, and Alara was prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice to stop him. Chapter 18. Breaking Free. The Chimera machine groaned under the strain of Alara's emotional onslaught. The dark, ominous energy that had pulsed through it began to dissipate, replaced by a swirling vortex of multicolored light. The very structure of the machine began to crack and crumble. The CEO, his face contorted in a mask of rage and terror, lunged at Alara, attempting to stop her. But Jax, summoning a surge of strength from somewhere deep within, managed to trip him, sending him sprawling to the floor. "Alara!" Jax shouted, his voice strained. "It's working. Keep going." Alara nodded, her focus unwavering. She continued to pour her energy into the machine, channeling the Heartstar's power, amplifying her love, her hope, her determination to create a better future. The Chimera machine reached critical mass. A blinding flash of light erupted from its core, followed by a deafening explosion. The vault shook, the walls cracked, and the ceiling began to collapse. Jax, using the last of his strength, grabbed Alara and pulled her away from the collapsing machine, shielding her with his body. They were thrown to the floor, debris raining down around them. When the dust settled, the Chimera machine was gone, reduced to a pile of twisted metal and shattered crystal. The CEO lay unconscious nearby, his body battered and bruised, his dreams of reshaping reality shattered. Alara and Jax, bruised and shaken, but alive, slowly got to their feet. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. We did it," Alara said, her voice barely a whisper. Jax nodded, his face pale but determined. "It's not over yet," he said. "We need to get out of here. And we need to help the people of Unity. They're going to need guidance healing." They helped each other to their feet, supporting each other, their bond stronger than ever. They had faced the ultimate test, the ultimate darkness, and they had emerged victorious. But the fight for a truly free future was just beginning. They found Rylan, still huddled in a corner, his mind seemingly shattered by the events he had witnessed. He offered no resistance as they helped him to his feet. Together, the three of them made their way out of the collapsing vault, navigating the debris-strewn corridors, heading towards the exit. The Harmony Tower was in chaos, alarms blaring, lights flickering, and panicked personnel running in all directions. As they reached the lobby, they were confronted by a group of armed guards, their harmonizers reactivated by a backup system. The guards raised their weapons, aiming at Alara and Jax. But before they could fire, a wave of intense emotion swept through the lobby, emanating from everywhere. The people of Unity, awakened from their emotional slumber, were fighting back. The guards staggered, clutching their heads, their faces contorted in a mixture of pain and confusion. They lowered their weapons, their eyes filled with a newfound awareness. The rebellion, sparked by Alara and Jax, had spread throughout the city, throughout the colonized worlds. The Harmony's control was broken, once and for all. Alara and Jax, joined by Rylan, who seemed to be slowly regaining his senses, walked out of the Harmony Tower into the dawn of a new era. An era of freedom, of emotion, of humanity. The price had been high, the journey perilous, but they had broken free, not just themselves, but an entire civilization. An internal error has occurred. Chapter 19. The Heartstar's Legacy. The aftermath of the Harmony's collapse was a period of both chaos and rebuilding. The sudden surge of unfettered emotions overwhelmed many, leading to conflicts and confusion. But amidst the turmoil, a sense of hope began to emerge, a collective yearning for a future defined not by control, but by connection. Alara and Jax, recognized as the leaders of the rebellion, worked tirelessly to restore order and provide guidance. They established temporary shelters, organized aid distribution, and, most importantly, used the remaining truth serum to help people process their re-emerging emotions and memories. Rylan, his mind slowly healing, became an unexpected ally. He provided invaluable insights into the corporation's infrastructure and technology, helping to dismantle the remaining vestiges of the Harmony's control. He was a changed man, haunted by his past actions, but driven by a genuine desire for redemption. The Heartstar's energy, now residing within Alara, became a beacon of hope and healing. She learned to control and channel its power, using it to soothe anxieties, mend broken hearts, and foster understanding between individuals and groups. She became a symbol of the new era, a testament to the power of emotion to both destroy and to heal. Jax, freed from the shadow of his family's legacy, dedicated himself to building a new society, one based on principles of freedom, empathy, and respect for individual differences. He used his piloting skills and his knowledge of the outer zones to establish trade routes, connect isolated communities, and foster cooperation between different factions. The rebel base, Sanctuary, became a hub of this new society, a melting pot of cultures and ideas, a testament to the power of unity and diversity. Anya, her initial skepticism replaced by a deep respect for Alara and Jax, became a key figure in the new government, ensuring that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. One day, as Alara and Jax were working in the makeshift command center, a signal arrived from Kepler 186f. It was faint, fragmented, but unmistakable. It was the Heartstar calling to them. They knew that they had to return. They had to understand the true nature of the planet's unique emotional properties, to learn how to harness its power for the benefit of humanity. They gathered a small team, including Rylan, and boarded a newly constructed ship, a vessel designed not for war, but for exploration and healing. They set a course for Kepler 186f, leaving behind the chaos and the rebuilding, embarking on a new journey, a journey of discovery and understanding. As they approached the planet, the familiar hum of the signal resonated within Alara, stronger than ever. She could feel the planet's emotions, its joy, its sorrow, its love. They landed near the wreckage of the original Heartstar module, the site of their first encounter with the planet's power. The forest, once alien and forbidding, now seemed welcoming, vibrant, alive. They spent weeks on Kepler 186f, studying the planet's unique energy field, learning to communicate with it, to understand its rhythms, its cycles, its consciousness. They discovered that the planet was not just a source of emotion, but a living entity, a being of pure feeling. Alara, guided by the Heartstar's energy, established a permanent connection with the planet, becoming its guardian, its ambassador, its friend. She learned to channel the planet's energy, to use it to heal, to inspire, to create. Jax, meanwhile, discovered a hidden cave, filled with ancient technology, remnants of a long-lost civilization that had understood and harnessed the planet's power. He dedicated himself to studying this technology, to unlocking its secrets, to using it for the betterment of humanity. The Heartstar's legacy was not just about breaking free from suppression, but about embracing a deeper connection with the universe and the power of emotion. Chapter 20. A Symphony of Souls. Years passed. The galaxy, once dominated by the sterile Harmony, had blossomed into a vibrant tapestry of interconnected cultures, each embracing its own unique emotional landscape. The scars of the past remained, but they were slowly fading, replaced by a growing sense of unity, understanding, and shared purpose. Alara and Jax, their names etched in the annals of history as the liberators of humanity, continued their work, traveling between worlds, fostering cooperation, and sharing the wisdom of Kepler 186f. They had become living embodiments of the Heartstar's legacy, symbols of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of love. Rylan, fully redeemed, had dedicated his life to helping others overcome the trauma of emotional suppression. He established healing centers across the galaxy, using a combination of technology and therapy to guide individuals through the often turbulent process of rediscovering their feelings. He became a beacon of hope for those who had been broken by the harmony, a testament to the power of forgiveness and redemption. Kepler 186f, once a forbidden and feared world, had become a sanctuary, a place of learning and healing. A research facility, built around the original Heartstar module, attracted scientists, artists, and philosophers from across the galaxy, all eager to understand the planet's unique emotional properties and its connection to the universe. One day, Alara and Jax returned to Kepler 186f, drawn by a powerful surge in the planet's energy. They landed near the research facility, greeted by a diverse group of individuals, all working together, united by their shared curiosity and their respect for the planet's power. As they walked through the facility, they saw scientists studying the planet's energy field, artists creating breathtaking works inspired by its beauty, and philosophers debating the nature of consciousness and emotion. It was a testament to the transformative power of freedom, a living embodiment of the future they had fought so hard to achieve. They made their way to the original Heartstar module, now housed within a protective dome, its energy carefully monitored and studied. Alara placed her hand on the familiar surface, feeling the familiar hum of the signal, resonating with her own being. She closed her eyes, connecting with the planet's consciousness, sharing her thoughts, her feelings, her hopes for the future. She felt the planet respond, its energy flowing through her, filling her with a sense of peace, of belonging, of love. Jax placed his hand on her shoulder, his touch grounding her, reminding her of their shared journey, their unbreakable bond. He, too, had developed a deep connection to Kepler 186f, his understanding of its power growing with each passing year. They stood there, together, bathed in the planet's ethereal glow, a symphony of souls, connected by love, by shared experience, by a common purpose. They were no longer just individuals, they were part of something larger, something grander, something infinite. The energy surge that had drawn them to Kepler 186f intensified. The planet was communicating, not just with Alara, but with everyone connected to the Heartstar's legacy across the galaxy. It was a message of hope, of unity, of celebration. A celebration of freedom, of emotion, of the boundless potential of humanity. A celebration of life in all its messy, chaotic, beautiful glory. Alara and Jax looked at each other, their eyes filled with tears of joy. They had come full circle. They had faced their demons, overcome their fears, and unleashed the power of emotion to heal a broken galaxy. Their journey had been long and arduous, but it had led them to this moment, this culmination, this symphony of souls. They knew their work would never truly be finished, and that humanity's journey had only just begun. Epilogue. Centuries later, the story of Alara and Jax had become a legend, a myth, a guiding principle for generations to come. The Harmony Corporation was a distant memory, a cautionary tale about the dangers of control and the importance of embracing the full spectrum of human experience. Kepler 186f remained a sacred place, a sanctuary for those seeking emotional and spiritual growth. The planet's energy, carefully managed and understood, had become a source of healing and inspiration for countless individuals across the galaxy. A young girl, visiting Kepler 186f with her family, stood before the original Heartstar module, her eyes wide with wonder. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the smooth, cool surface. She felt a faint hum, a subtle vibration, a whisper of emotion. She closed her eyes, listening, learning, connecting. She heard the echoes of the past, the stories of courage, of sacrifice, of love. She heard the voices of Alara and Jax, guiding her, inspiring her, reminding her of the power that resided within her, within everyone. The girl smiled, her heart filled with hope. She knew that she, too, was a part of the Heartstar's legacy, a part of the ongoing symphony of souls, a part of the ever-evolving story of humanity. The future was uncertain, but it was filled with possibilities, with the promise of connection, of understanding, of love. And she was ready to embrace it, with all her heart, with all her soul, with all her emotions.